I just quickly want to talk about several quick myths about the Energy East pipeline, because we need to be ready to answer this. These are the arguments they're giving us. First of all, they're saying that this is a great national endeavor. This is like the railway. This is like, you know, the opening of the West or whatever, that this is bringing, Energy East will bring Western energy to Eastern Canadians. This is absolutely false. This is a through pipeline. It is not going to bring energy from Western Canada to Eastern Canadians, except in tiny portions. 90% of it is for export, and it's really important that we say that over and over. I saw a report the other day from the CBC just repeating that this is going to be a way of sharing the bounty from the west to the east. It is absolutely incorrect, and let's say that again and again. They also tell us that it's going to bring jobs, and this is also wrong. And this is wrong because it's an export pipeline. So there will be some jobs set up, but not very, very few permanent jobs. And even the industry, even the company itself admits that. And it will not bring back the Alberta jobs that have been lost, because they have not been lost because of no Energy East pipeline. They've been lost because of the drop in global oil prices. And so we need to argue that back, but stop and ask about the jobs that would get lost, the jobs that would be permanently lost, if that's what you want to talk about, if there's a spill, either around here or in the St. Lawrence or in the Bay of Fundy. Andrea and I toured the Bay of Fundy last year, and the people are just appalled when they understand what this stuff is, the harm it would do, what would it do to tourism, to the fisheries industry, to the farming industry. This is what happened. This is the story in Kalamazoo, was just a horrific personal loss. We need to take this into account when they give us the argument on jobs. And, you know, we need to be totally sensitive to the issue around jobs. It is a real issue in Western Canada, and we need to say this with love and solidarity to other people in the country who are experiencing job loss. There are better, more permanent, more sustainable jobs in bringing us alternative energy sources than in extreme energy. But we really have to argue this one back. Then you hear all over the place, and I hear this even from supporters of, you know, generally think that pipelines are wrong, but they say, but aren't they better than rail? This is very important for us to argue that it's oranges and apples. If they build the Energy East pipeline, it would increase tar sands production by 40%. There would be more than enough to ship by rail and by pipeline. But it's also apples and oranges in that most of the pipelines are carrying fracked gas, fracked oil. That's what exploded in Lac-Mégantic. That's what was so dangerous. So we're really not talking about the same thing here. We need to say we have deep concerns about both. We are going to say no to these pipelines, not only Energy East, but Kinder Morgan and Northern Gateway as well. But we're also going to bring in strict regulations around the movement of any kind of energy by rail. It's not one bad thing or the other bad thing. We have the right to protect ourselves, our families, our environment, and our water from both. Then we're told, and this is the latest from the Trudeau government, that getting tar sands oil to tidewater will help pay for a transition to a green economy. This is their latest argument, and they're saying it with a straight face. This is the argument that our environment minister has around saying yes to LNG terminals, and in BC they're fighting the Site C dam. This is the same. Well, we need to get wealthy enough to be able to convert to an alternative economy. It's absolutely false. Scientists from around the world are telling us that we have to leave 85% of this oil in the ground. We cannot be extracting this oil under any circumstances or moving it. And if we put billions of dollars, plus all that political energy, plus all of our future into Energy East, it means that we're developing a future based on the most extreme type of fossil fuels. That means the energy and the funding and the experimentation and everything else is not going to go into alternative energy, which is where we need to go. And the last of these myths is that the threat to Canada's waterways by Energy East can be managed. This is perhaps the biggest myth of them all, and it fits in with the original myth of our country, our founding myth, which is that we have so much water. We have this abundance of everything, trees and minerals and fish and water and clean air, that we can do anything we want with it. We can take our water and we can dump all the pollution in it, and we can move it anywhere we want, and we don't have to even map the groundwater, because we just assume that there's so much down there. And we can let companies like Nestle, boycott Nestle, take it's now currently 4 million liters a day from the wells near Guelph, but they've just acquired a third well, which will bring them up to 6 million liters a day. That's well over 1 billion liters a year. That means 1 billion little plastic bottles that are shipping that water out for huge profit, and they're paying $3.71 for 1 million liters. It is appallingly irresponsible of us to allow this to happen. But we've had this myth of abundance. There's so much water, Nestle can have all it wants. This is on the Grand River, by the way, where there are 11,000 First Nations, 90% of whom do not have access to clean water, drinking water, and sanitation. So when we talk about the absolute exact immediate need, we're still saying this myth of abundance is there. What the Energy East would be bringing this dilbit, diluted bitumen, this tarry bitumen laced with these chemicals across almost 3,000 waterways between Hardisty, Alberta, and St. John, New Brunswick, and it would put the drinking water of over 5 million people in jeopardy. It is absolutely not worth the risk at any level for any of the myths, for any of the notion about nation building. And we have to say, no, wait a minute. We have a nation building project too, and that nation building project is to protect our water across the country and to protect the human right and the human justice right to clean, accessible water by all people in our country and by all future generations. And we've heard here tonight again how important it is that we think 7 generations beyond. Being grandmothers gives you that perspective. It is absolutely essential that we not play fast and loose with the future that we're hearing here. In our area, we're told by this report that there would be would spill 1.1 million barrels a day, and that this would be catastrophic for the Rideau, the Mississippi, and the Ottawa rivers. And I want us to remember, we had 3 laws that were gutted by the Harper government, as well as 2,000 scientists that were laid off, plus dozens and dozens of water institutes and research centers and so on that were closed under the Harper administration. They gutted the Fisheries Act, they gutted the Navigable Waters Protection Act, and they gutted the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act. And what they did with this, particularly on the Navigable Waters Protection Act changes, they made it so that 99% of all the lakes and rivers that Energy East would cross over, under, or right alongside have no federal protection, no protection at the federal level whatsoever. This is appalling. And so when the Trudeau government was running for office, they said, we're going to have a water minister, and we're going to bring all the water agencies together, and we're going to reinvest in all of the water projects that were gutted, and we're going to reinstate these 3 acts. What are they doing now? They're holding consultations. Why are they holding consultations instead of reinstating these acts? Because the extractive industries and the construction industry have come to them and said, we want to talk. We don't know that we actually don't want those laws reinstated in their current form. So it's extremely important that while we're fighting Energy East, that we're saying no to the continued treatment and abuse of our water in this way. We have not mapped our groundwater. We have no national drinking water standards in Canada. We have very poor national wastewater treatment standards. 85% of all the chemicals sold in Canada have not been tested for their toxicity by our government. The Canadian Environmental Protection Act has not been enforced for the last dozen years. The outgoing head of the enforcement branch, who just retired, said that during the last 2 years of the Harper regime, they were actually breaking the law. They were not enforcing even what was still clearly within their jurisdiction to enforce, because they didn't want to run afoul of the pro-industry, pro-extractive industries bent of the last government. Would this new government have done this? I don't know. But that we have all inherited a situation now where we have to say no no to Energy East, absolutely. When they come calling, we say, you shall not pass. I mean, just absolutely not. But we also have to reinstate the protections for water in this country, and we need what I call a new water ethic, where we say whatever we do, every single policy, every action has to ask the question, what is the impact on water? And if the impact on water isn't good, go back to the drawing boards, because we have to produce energy and we have to grow food and we have to trade across borders in ways that are not destroying the world's water. And when I tell you that the demand for water in our world is going straight up and the supply is going straight down like two arrows going in the opposite directions, it is as serious as I could possibly say to you. By 2050, there's potential that 7 billion people in our world will not have access to clean water and sanitation. We're in a race on the human right to water front against the destruction, the exponential destruction of our lakes, rivers, and groundwaters around the world. And if we Canadians think that we're an exception and that we somehow are better or we've done a better job, think again. We just have more water to destroy, and we're doing it as fast as we can. The moment has come for us to take this very, very seriously. Saying no to Energy East is an incredibly important step in this process. Reconnecting to water, learning to respect and love water, as we've heard we need to do tonight. This is our task now, and it's an extraordinarily important one. Thank you so much.